Oh, here we are. I didn't do the countdown because because I didn't click on it, and then also because we're kind of late starting anyway. So welcome everybody. I want to thank you all for attending these past few weeks. This has been a lot of fun for me. It's been cool to chat with people from different perspectives and to see have different people come in and guest and things like that. And I think we've talked about some really interesting topics. And from some messages and emails and different things that I've gotten feedback from you, the listeners, I think people have enjoyed these. At least nobody, roasted us too badly. So if you have been liking these, make sure to let us know because we are going to do a little hiatus. When I roped everybody into this at the beginning, I said, I know it's a commitment to show up every week, but at least let's do 6 of them and then see where we're at. And I've really appreciated the fact that you guys have been here every week and shown up and given your time to do this. But I also don't want to wear everybody out. So we're going to take a little how do I say this? Hiatus. A break. A small break. If you are liking what we've been talking about, or you have other things you want us to talk about, or you want to lobby to come on and talk about it with us, send me a message, send me an email, adventistmillennial@gmail.com, or on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you can find me, and let me know. And then hopefully in a few weeks, maybe in the summer, middle of summer, we'll come back and do some more of these. But I'm happy to have Jacob back again with us with the rest of the crew. And today I wanted to talk about community, because I think that one of the, for its faults and struggles with community, religion also has been, at least in my experience and a lot of people that I know, one of the best places for existing community structure. And so I think that's something that has going for it, even if people take issue with the beliefs. And it also does at times fail, people get hurt in church communities a lot. There's a lot of damage that can be done. But I also don't see very many successful communities cropping up with real connection with people in the secular world. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today and just get your guys' thoughts on it. If the religious world was a pillar for communities in the past, will it be in the future? And if not, how do we replicate those outside of that? So I guess first of all, how's it going, you guys?
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What the first thing I want, the place I want to start is just asking you what you see for yourself and for people your age today. Because I know just for me growing up, I grew up in the 90s and the 2000s, and, I'm solidly a millennial. And I've seen, we were at the crest of technology, right? There was tech when we were young, but it just really took off in a hockey stick parabolic way in the last 25 years or so. And so I think that's really changed the social fabric of the modern world. So as being sort of that pivotal generation where we grew up with technology, but also we still had some remnants of playing in the woods and stuff. How have you seen social dynamics change? How do people your age, how do you see them creating connection? Is it inside of religion? Is it outside of religion? Just what are some of your observations about how communities come together or don't in modern society?
It does seem like church is a really good place for community for the most part. I mean, sometimes it can be judgmental and not necessarily the most mature thing, but I've seen a lot of churches who, especially mega churches that have to I guess be more politically correct and more vague almost. It's that helps people kind of check themselves a little bit, I think, with the diversity that they attract. So I think that socially is going well. And as far as in general, it seems like with more of with the internet, you can find more people similar to you, but it almost makes people different from you seem more unfathomable and more upsetting. So it's just like creating a polarization, and people aren't friends with like whole people, I guess, like the complex person anymore. It's just like what you want to show somebody.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, because I know that people often talk about like social media, like sort of glamorizing people's lives and things. But I think, I think that's a fairly obvious phenomenon to observe, but it's a little bit harder when you actually do feel like you know people online to realize how how much friction there is in human relationships no matter what. And the internet kind of, I mean, it exacerbates it in some ways with like depersoning whoever you're talking to in a way, but it also enables people to only reveal certain things, and it allows people to feel like very disconnected. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's been a problem. I was actually gonna see if I could like shift the like narrative of the like lack of community away from secular and religious and more towards the like new social media atmosphere that we've been like presented with.
Okay.
Because I don't, because I guess I think the fallen community is probably more to do with the internet, just because like that it's just ease of communication kind of like makes it so you're like less close to people proximity wise. So
Right. So you're saying that that's more of the cause, or like the catalyzing thing for the breakdown of sort of our social connection
yeah, that'd be my
versus
argument.
like
Right.
secularization.
Because
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna pull in sensory a bit with like Scandinavia being more historically segregated, but not necessarily lacking in community before like we did or
Sure.
things like
Yeah, right. I don't disagree with that. I do think that is the larger part of it. I think I'm sort of framing it as religious community versus others is because from my perspective, having grown up in it, that's where I got most of my community.
Mhm.
And coming outside and more into the secular world, I don't see the same type of connection that I saw within religion.
Right.
So whether it's the cause or not, I'm just trying to compare like what do communities look like within religion, and are there positive and negative aspects of that? And then what do they look like outside? Are they
Right.
different, or are they the same?
I,
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I would agree that social media probably did a little less damage to church being a like medium for community, whereas the secular world kind of lost their traditional mediums with the like implementation of tech and
Yeah.
social media and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is a trope too, isn't it? Like the secular world is here with its development, and then the church is like back here,
Yeah.
like 20 years back. So we're just following along on the tech,
Right.
revolution here. But I do think that because of the sort of pillars of faith and things like that, there are some sort of built-in necessities of like it's not necessarily like a doctrine, but it is kind of implied of like if you're going to be within a group belief system, then necessarily it's important to physically connect with people. And I think that's one reason why within religion, at least in Christianity, it's maintained the ability, not very well, but better in the tech era, to have in person and emphasis on human connection. Although I will say, since COVID, that's changed a lot.
Right.
I went to church a little bit more regularly before COVID, but I pretty much haven't been back at all since before everything locked down in 2020. And I think that that's been kind of a trend. Like, I think churches are emptier now than they were a few years ago.
One comment I would make is that I think one of the reasons the church has stayed as a community is because it has a much older population than maybe some of the other communities. I guess I think church could very easily turn into like, I don't know, just like a live stream kind of thing, and
Right.
that be the predominant thing, and then you
Totally.
would kind of they would be running into the same issues we are. So
Yeah, for sure. I see that for sure. Manly, what do you think? Because you're kind of still involved more than the rest of us in like church community.
Yeah, I'm constantly going to church. I go to church all the time. I'm involved in church. I have a life group every Saturday that I run. There are all my church people hang out like all the time. Every Sunday we hang out. We go to lunch after church. To be honest, I don't really hang out with people apart from church people. So,
Right.
Oh yes,
I've-
because you're the egotistical maniac who hates hanging out.
yeah, that's
No,
true,
I'm
I
kidding.
suppose.
I'm just
Gosh.
kidding.
No one else knows what you're talking about. Anyone else is watching is like, what is she saying right now?
Just going with it.
To be honest, I've always wondered, like, okay, what if a secular person doesn't drink alcohol? Like, how do they make connections with people? Because,
Yeah.
like, where do secular people hang out and spend time? Most of my friends that are agnostic or atheists, they're usually, like, when I tell them, like, hey, like, where do you want to hang out or something like that? Or who do you hang out with these days? They're like, well, I don't know. I don't really have any friends, or it's kind of hard for me to hang out with people. Or, I mean, I go to the bar every once in a while and see people that I know. I guess it's hard for people. For some people, it's not easy to make friends and find things to do or have natural hobbies. So, I think that's the upside of like church, is that, like you were saying, Emily, it's kind of like a thing, like whether you're very people-y or not, like, hey, it's part of the culture that we all come to church, we interact with each other, we spend time with one another, we build one another up, and iron sharpens iron, all that fun stuff. It's kind of part of the culture that even if you want to stay home, like, you're going to be guilted a little bit if you don't come to church and spend time with people in community. Where I feel like it's, I'm not sure, like, I've never been a part of secular culture, so I don't really know how that goes down, or how everyone, unless you just happen to have a friend that's real good at getting people together, then like,
Well, I mean, like, the three of us know, or the four of us know each other from a community, an online community.
Right, that's true.
And I've met multiple close friends in that. It's a secular community. It's just an online community. I met my girlfriend there. I met all of you guys there. So, there is, I see them happening somewhere. But I have heard very often the sentiment that you just said, Manly, of people being like, I don't know, in this modern age where everyone is so atomized and siloed, I don't know how to meet people and make actual real friendships where it's not like you hang out maybe and you maybe play games or you maybe like tweet at each other, but somebody that I actually feel like is part of my life, or like a group, you know?
Yeah. And on that same token, I'll admit, Emily, like, I like you guys. You're all really cool. But if it wasn't for you, I don't think anyone in DFW would be hanging out together, like, and a part of OP. You're very good at getting people together and making things happen. But like, I don't make people hang out. And if you weren't in DFW, like, making a DFW hangout happen, then who would do that? You know what I mean?
It's true. Right. And I've felt that way, you know, even within the church setting too. Unless there's somebody who takes ownership and is like, okay, let's make this happen, it won't usually happen. And I think that's the struggle is, first of all, you need those leaders, but then also you need people who are willing to invest, which is why I appreciate you guys for showing up week after week for this, because it is hard to find people. Not that you guys weren't my first choice, but I asked several people to be on this, besides you guys, who just couldn't commit to doing it. And I think that is the difficulty of creating meaningful relationships, is like, you need interaction across time and deeper interaction to really build a relationship with somebody. And that takes a lot of commitment.
Yeah. It seems most people aren't willing to put in that commitment these days because life is hard.
Yeah.
And you can easily get like little punches of human interaction through social media, where like our parents before the internet, they would have started getting depressed and been like, dang, I need to hang out with people. Where now I think we can kind of like mask it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. You totally can. And yeah, I don't know. And this is true too, not just in a broad social way, but like in a dating way. I think most of us are in relationships, but Well, all of us, but there, if you've ever read the book Modern Love by Aziz Ansari, he's talking about the way people connect for romantic relationships nowadays. It's like too many options, and people get bogged down with that. Whereas like in the olden days, quote unquote, it's like you have this many options in your local city, and like just pick one, like get on with it. Which,
you better get pregnant, otherwise it's not. You're not passing on your seed.
Yeah, totally. There are pluses and minuses to that. There are pluses on the everyone was obligated to commitment, which is a benefit. But then there are minuses on like nowadays people get in relationships more for love and stuff like that. But it also often breaks down on the commitment side, you know? So not to dive into like that aspect of it, but I was just trying to point out like we have, like Stephanie was saying, because it's the internet and it's global and it's the whole world, you have the opportunity to find really specific niches of people that you could connect with on certain things. But then at the same time, it makes it so like atomized that it's hard to really narrow down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say from like a, I guess, secular community perspective, like I have found community like in running, like going to races, and there are like group runs. So I think, and I also play soccer. So it's like I've got them, but it's like mostly we're meeting for the purpose of the sport, not really to live life. And it's like maybe if I talk to them more, but I'm also not that type of person to look like I want a friendship, I guess. Like even if I do, I'm not going to show it. So yeah. So it's like maybe I'm not the person that they'll be like, hey, want to hang out afterwards? But I will talk to them and we'll gain a relationship like for that purpose.
Yeah, totally. One of my must have just been a meme that I saw. You know, there's this whole faction, maybe you don't know, maybe some people know, there's this whole faction of the internet that's like about trad life or like traditional lifestyles, you know? And one of some meme that I saw was like moms complaining about having young kids and like not knowing how to make friends and just being stuck with their little kids all the time and like going crazy. And somebody was like, go to the park and meet moms at the park. And they were like, all the moms were in the comments like, okay, you can go to the park, but just because you're at the park near somebody doesn't mean you're going to automatically make friends with them. It's a little bit deeper than that, you know, like it's not that easy. Because I've also heard the theory too, like because the internet and COVID have removed all of the unwanted social friction. So like if you don't want to see it, you don't have to interact there. When you actually get in person with people, we've like reduced our tolerance for it, you know? Yeah, so the minute somebody does something that we don't like, we're like, I'm not hanging out with you anymore. Or like, I'm out of this situation. And it makes it difficult to actually build meaningful relationships with people if you cannot tolerate any type of friction.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah. Rose has a question. What do you guys think about all the splinters in religious groups and churches, new offshoots and denominations?
It's a hard question. I don't know how much it matters. Usually when I go to church, I don't really look at the denomination, which, I mean, growing up, I started out Baptist, and then I went to kind of like a Presbyterian, non-denominational church. But they were very similar to me. And then I also went to another type of church, and it's like maybe sometimes there's a little more like reciting versus like listening. I've been to Kingdom Halls, and it's like, I don't know. They don't seem, I mean, Kingdom Halls are very universalized. They're all exactly the same to themselves. So it's not as varied as like Christian church, but it's like overall, it doesn't really seem that different to me. Unless I had like a controversial issue I had a really strong opinion on, then I might want to find my community somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a result of a bunch of different personality types and people like thinking too hard and finding like that they're really smart and unique, and then they start something new, and then that just extrapolates over hundreds of years.
Yeah, or like a prophet here and a prophet there, you know?
Yeah, and now everyone's like, oh, I got this new thing, or it's super cool. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting because most of the time when you hear about conflicts between denominations, they're doctrinal conflicts. Like we're different than this denomination because we believe this or they believe that. The community aspect is usually very similar, at least
Yep.
within Christianity and especially Protestantism. But I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago at a Bible study thing that I went to, and she was saying, she was an older lady. She had a daughter my age. And she was saying, like, in her life, she's only ever stayed in a church for like 10 years because she is, I guess, doing like the more logical searching thing of like, I want to find what is quote unquote the truth. So she would like try to find the truth in the XYZ denomination and then eventually end up leaving, but then like feel torn out of the community that she had built there. Whereas a lot of times I've heard people leaving the churches because they're like mad at the people there, like, you know, like you hurt me or like whatever. So it's interesting, everyone's different experiences. As far as denominations go, yeah, I agree with Manly. It's just like you could write, you know, one letter and everyone would interpret it differently. Or like look at politics. This, you see one event and everybody has a different interpretation of what it is or what it means. I think it's the same thing with religions. Let's see. Do you think the secular world is disparate because of globalization and that we can have such nuanced beliefs? Oh, are you saying that we have differing beliefs because of globalization? Maybe. Anyway, I'll take this question as just, do you think that the world is disparate because of globalization? I do think that's a huge impactor. Technology created or made globalization easier and therefore created smaller niches of people.
For me on that one, I think a lot of it has to do with the access to information and the access to ideas that other people wouldn't have necessarily thought of on their own. Like there would be a lot of people, like I think one of the reasons secular beliefs expanded was because of the internet and people could see that other people had secular beliefs and that like it wasn't the end of the world compared to like if you don't know it, like if you don't know God, that people don't believe God exists, then there's no way you can, right? So I think access to information, and then oh god, I forgot what I was going to say, sorry.
That happens to me all the time. I'm like, I had a really good point. Okay, let's see, what else is Rose saying? Are we headed for an explosion of opinions and offshoots then to a singularity, like they say about language? Okay, yeah, so that's an interesting idea. I haven't really thought about it before. But you could say that, like, for example, I don't know if we're heading to a singularity in language. You might argue that. But as far as, like, the history of English goes, it's definitely become, like, streamlined over time, all the way down to, it was a very esoteric language at one point, and now it's one of the most exoteric languages, meaning it's like easy for an adult non-plastic brain to learn because it's just been sort of grammatically worn down, like in a rock tumbler over the years and generations from adults of speaking other languages learning English. And so now it's very easy for adults to learn it. So it's accessible, and it's relatable in that way. So maybe you can kind of see that happening with ideas as well. I think people are still, to Jacob's point, depending on where you are and what sort of branch of ideas you live among, that kind of will be largely deterministic on the ideas that you adopt. Not always, but oftentimes. But within that, over time, the ideas collectively get sort of turned over and worn down into like nuggets that just get passed down over time. What do you guys think?
I wonder if it's going to be more dichotomous than it is singular, like the yin and yang. It's like you have the people who agree and the people who disagree, and good and bad. It's almost like, I don't know, to me it kind of feels like mental health, and that seems kind of like left field, but I guess it's because it is my field. but it's like getting more prominent and worse, and it's just turning into fight or flight responses, which results in black and white thinking. So people just not having the nuance that they had before. It's like the group is thinking for them, and groups in themselves create groupthink, which is more radical opinions than what they would do individually. So I think people are just getting radicalized, and it's like to them, it's like there are good people and there are bad people. It's almost like there are narcissists and there are empaths, and there's nobody in between.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
okay.
true. The amount that people throw around narcissistic
Yes,
stuff these days is like very surprising.
it's triggering. It's annoying.
Although at the same time, I do think mental health has increased.
Hmm.
Mental health problems or issues,
Oh, right, yes.
depression, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I want to go also on to what you guys personally are seeking if you are out of community. Like, mainly, I know that you're involved in church, but you also have said like it's not your first instinct to just like socialize and things like that. So like, what's driving you to do that? What's your goal with it? All that kind of stuff.
I have like a lofty, stupid, big, fun goal of really good community and an ideal world, an ideal society where everyone is actually spending time together, working together, living together. Probably what you would consider actual bliss or quote unquote heaven-like kingdom type society. Kind of like a kumbaya type thing where everyone comes together at the end of the day, sits around a
And lives
campfire,
on a
eats together.
kibbutz.
I don't know what you just said. Was that English?
Like a like a commune.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I want to start a commune, like a compound, with guns and stuff. I'm just kidding. It
So
doesn't.
where does
I'm
this
being
come
silly.
from then? If it's like, because I know a lot of people who like that's their personal, like they really want that. So they're driven to go out and try to find it. But like, what's your driver?
Yeah, it'd probably be my philosophy. I feel driven to create an ideal world, and I want to be a catalyst for that. And that's kind of like my whole purpose. And because of my personality type, the way that I do that is through business and making lots of money so that I can basically buy people's friendship. Not literally, but honestly, I'm intrigued by human psychology and relationship and intimacy. And I think the true healer of people is good, intimate relationships with one another, vulnerability, honesty, and all of us sticking up for one another and helping one another. If we look at most of the poverty in the world, everyone's looking at someone else to try and help them. And ultimately, a lot of people just look at the government to give handouts, which I'm not opposed to government safety nets, but the reality is that that's very emotionally separated from probably the best real avenue, which should be genuine relationship and helping one another to be the best version of ourselves. And I idealize a world like that. And I want it to be the whole world, but I feel like it starts with a smaller knit community. And I want to be, like I said, a catalyst for that and a leader for that and figure out how to make that happen.
Do you think that is idealistic or is it realistic?
Do I think it's idealistic?
Yeah. Like, do you think that's possible?
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's possible. So the way that I work is like I would say like I'm an idealistic pessimist / skeptic. Like if I told you all my ideas and everything that I want to accomplish, like is very idealistic. And do I think it's unrealistic by statistical term? Like, yes, 100%, it's unrealistic. But would that stop me from doing it? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I also think that statistics come down like that. A lot of the time in mathematical statistical data, it doesn't account for confidence and someone's unwillingness to give up. It's like what like Jeff Bezos has done, Elon Musk, all these guys. Like everyone's like, oh, that's impossible. Well, obviously it's not impossible. Like they were just like, F it, I'm doing it, and then they just kept doing it until it happened. So I might die trying to make it happen, but I would rather do that than give up. If the alternative is give up, then I'll just kill myself now. Like it's not like that's it's like my purpose. It's ingrained in my mind. So I've actually tried to like just be like, oh, I'm just gonna get a normal job and just be okay with the idea that society sucks and like we're not ever gonna have real friends except for cute podcasts on the internet and stuff like that. Like as much like I love this, and this is great, but I think society is meant for greater things, and I'm going to do everything possible to make it happen. That's my thought.
That is, I like that, and I have a similar approach just in life of like letting your what's the word I'm looking for? Like your principles drive what you do, rather than like what is quote unquote possible based on general consensus. So I love that, and I do think that that is one thing that that religious culture offers people, is like this outside of yourself standard of like, okay, you know, maybe it sounds unrealistic could be based on the lying eyes of evidence in your life, you know, but there's an ideal to which we aspire, even if we never reach it in this life, that, you know, we should reach for. I'm not saying that doesn't exist outside of religion, but it is very, very easy to get nihilistic, you know, and just in the world. So I admire that sort of take on it. What about the rest of you? What do you think? What are your desires or goals for community, and what have you witnessed as like valuable experiences in community?
For me, I feel like people. Well, I mean, I have a lot of goals. Like, I mean, my goal in general is to help people be excited about learning about the world and about life and about people, rather than predicting something negative or positive. Like, I mean, it's like, I guess I feel like the most honest thing is to be open to it and to be interested than predictive, I guess.
Right,
but
to not have as much of a specific end in goal. I mean, and in mind, but to have the experience for itself.
Yeah, I guess I just think it's like healthier to kind of just be interested in what's out there than to predict something that, because if it's a positive thing you predict and it doesn't work out, that results in depression. If you predict something negative, that results in depression. So to me, it just seems like grounding to kind of be open and interested. And I think if we had that attitude towards people, we wouldn't be so visceral about relationships sometimes, and we might actually listen to people and understand something we didn't understand before.
Yeah. Jacob, do you want to jump in? You don't have to. For me, you can. I'll circle back to you. For me, I think I've always been kind of interested and driven to create spaces where people can interact. When I was a kid, I was involved in church, but also outside of that, we were like known, my brothers and I, we were all homeschooled. So we were like, you know, the stereotype, hopefully not the stereotype of homeschoolers, but we were like very close knit, and we were like known in our social group as like the games crew or like the antics crew. And we would always regularly have game nights. We would have parties for people, and that's what people looked at us for, was for those kinds of things. And so I think I've always had this streak of like, how can I get people together and give them an opportunity to like connect if they want to, or if they don't, they can just have fun. Because I've also always had like this sort of insecurity or difficulty feeling that it's very hard for me to do. And so I always value when other people create those opportunities, and then I can jump in. So since I've gotten older, I've tried to create those opportunities also for other people, because I know that, especially now, in light of everything that we've been talking about, like technology and stuff, it is very difficult to put yourself out there, you know, and to be like, hello person, let's be friends, you know, because on the one hand, it's easy to come off as like overly eager in an off-putting way. And then it's also really easy to come off as like disinterested. So it's a kind of like a social courtship happening in the world, and it's a hard thing to sort of, especially if you are somebody who, you know, is a little more introverted or has like social anxiety or like is low in confidence in some areas. It can be extremely difficult to put yourself out there, and I have sympathy for people who find their life experience that way, and so that's why I try the best I can to like create those opportunities.
I think Jacob's microphone's
Is
not
he
working.
having? Yeah, it looks like he's having some audio problems. That's okay. You can, if you are working on it, and you just yell out if you figure it out. We'll give you the floor.
Emily, oh no, we can't hear. Emily, on that note that you were talking about, I think I've told you this before, but I wanted to repeat it. That I'm super grateful for you and that skill that you have. And that desire to do that. The fact that you do it is really important, and I think that the world would be a dramatically better place if there were more people like you doing that. Because even though like I have a similar goal of trying to make that happen, it's not something that I naturally commit to often. Like for example, for OP, I just wouldn't go out of my way to make people in DFW hang out. Like I do it at my church, and I tried to make something happen, but it is very localized to that. But people in general that are willing to like help foster spaces for people to build relationships, regardless of the setting, I think that's super valuable. I'm grateful that you do it all the time, because I'm always happy about it every time.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I really appreciate that, because it is something that is on a certain level, it's difficult for me to do. I mean, obviously, I get over that hump and I do it, but I do understand the anxiety of it, or the fear of it, or like fear of rejection and stuff like that. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you guys participate and you jump on board. Because I've talked to people who are like, well, I would try to set something up, but my greatest fear is that nobody will come. And I'm like, well, that's valid though. You know, it does suck. It does suck when that happens.
That's not even mine. I'm just a douche, and like I don't want to. Like, I don't want to commit to hang out with people usually.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, like, that's also why we're doing a little stint of these and then a hiatus, because I feel that too, of like, you know, if you are doing something out of obligation, it very quickly stops being fun, you know? So.
Yeah, I'm really glad you do this stuff too, Emily. I think it's awesome, and I always look forward to our little podcast and everything. So
do I. Yeah, I've loved getting to know you guys better.
I don't think we should have a hiatus. I think we should manipulate Emily to keep doing it.
Okay. Well,
manipulate her.
Yeah.
Emily, cancel whatever it is that you have going on elsewhere.
Okay. All right, I'll cancel it.
That was easy.
Yeah, but I want to see, like, because we all met each other through the same sort of community, and for anybody listening who doesn't know, we met in an online personality group, and I'm curious what value, if any, you guys have seen or gotten out of that group, and then translating that into like, if you were to create an ideal community, what would that look like, and what sort of traits would it have?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. It was a two-part question. The first part is like, we've all met each other from the objective personality community. So like in the course of just being in that group, is there anything that you're like, okay, this is something positive about that community that I like, that I've gotten out of it?
Yes.
If anything.
I love the objective personality community, because I feel like it's a rare like group where people are focused on the content and they're not just threatened by what people say. They actually consider it from like, oh, this person has a unique like situation with their like animal stack or their like personality type. So it's like, no matter what you say, nobody's going to be like, what? That's crazy. I mean, they may as a joke, but genuinely they're like, oh, that's data. And it's like every word that you say is data to someone. It's not something just like to not pay attention to.
I agree with that.
I'll go for it.
It's kind of like the group is just a group of people that, in general, I feel like their perspective is healthier than the average human, because one, they're probably trying to self-develop, self-actualize. They're trying to learn more about themselves. They probably have a perspective of trying to learn more about others. And it does seem like in general, they're willing to say like, oh yeah, I could judge that and be like a negative Nancy about it. And this person's being a goober. But in reality, like they're probably just like, that's their personality type. And oh, now I have evidence to say like, oh, maybe you're sleep last, or maybe you're play last, or maybe you're blast last. Like people are actually trying to understand each other instead of just attacking one another.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you.
Woo!
Yay!
Did it. I have no idea what I did or what keeps going on. I've changed the audio setting like 7 times.
I hate that. Nothing gets me triggered faster than like technical issues.
And it's like my mic's connection to StreamYard, so I don't.
Oh no. Well, we can hear you now. So
Yay.
give us a soliloquy.
Soliloquy. Give me a topic. We'll go from there.
I didn't hear.
Yeah, we were talking about like what's valuable, what you found valuable about the objective personality community, or just community in general. What things do you find valuable?
So I have a hazy relationship with the community. I'm not really part of the objective personality community, and I guess I wouldn't say I am. Stephanie definitely is, but most of my knowledge about personality comes from what she spews about it with her consume reports, right? So yeah, I don't really engage in community very much. I typically have a bit of a commitment issue when it comes to friends. I actually lost a few friends due to like just, oh, I don't feel like hanging out that day, and then I kind of ghost them, and then they get mad at me, and then I'm just like, oops. And then I like text them later, and then they're just like, yeah. I'm like, dang it, I just missed one birthday party. I didn't mean to, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't really engage much with communities or things like that. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Like, on one hand, you need a level, if you're having an actually community, like a group of people, on one hand, you do need some level of commitment so that people are actually engaged. But then some of my most valuable friendships, just individual, like one-on-one friendships, are friends that I can like not speak to for like 4 years and then just be like, yo, what up? And we're still as close friends as we always were.
That would be nice, but I tend to offend people when I do that. So
because of the times when you text them, I hate you, I'm never speaking to you again, don't text me.
I never say that. I'm like the least. I just like, sorry, I can't come to your daughter's birthday party. And it's like, oh, that's, and I paid you at the day
sounds
of.
savage.
Yeah, you know.
So,
Jacob,
okay.
just don't respond instead.
I know, that's like,
I mean, like, just don't tell him. Just don't even tell him you can't come, and then they just like, it's almost better than.
That makes it. I know, right? That makes it worse.
Did you guys ever watch The Tinder Swindler? It was that Netflix documentary about the dude who would like go on Tinder and like con these women and try to make them believe he was rich and all this kind of stuff, and basically he would just get money out of them. But one of his gambits was like he would text them. He had like this series of images of him and his bodyguard like getting attacked or like cut or beat, and they were like in an ambulance or whatever. You should just have some of those locked and loaded in your phone so you can be like, oh shoot, sorry, I went to the hospital last night.
Yeah, I think the problem is I don't lie. I'm just like, I'll just be like, they'll say, hey, can you come to this thing? And I won't really say anything. And then the day of, I'll be like, no, sorry, I can't come.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's your problem, bro. You're setting yourself up for failure.
I know.
I know. Until the day of, and then you're like, yeah, I'm not coming.
There are people. There's always, not to say that this is you, but it might be you. There's always someone in the group who is like notoriously like the flake, you know? Like, oh, should we invite them? Well, we could, but they'll probably just flake anyway. So
maybe I can see it. I'm typically, I'm probably the flake. That makes sense. I'm typically not when Stephanie's involved and we're seeing her friends, but when it's my friends, I'm the flake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting point though, but because to you, it seems like what you're saying is that community isn't like one of your highest needs on the list. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it would be nice to have. I just wish people shared a similar value system to me when it came to community. It's like, I don't judge people for not wanting to like hang out or do something with me, or if they're like stressed or something like that. Also, I don't do like big things like, I don't know, I don't host murder mystery parties and like very involved things and invite people to them. So it's like, I don't know. And if I did, it's like if somebody flaked, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll invite you next time. And even if I don't expect it, it's like, I don't know. I just wish people shared like similar values. Because
like
it's
a chill attitude is what
Right.
People are needy, bro. They are needy, man.
Yeah,
it's like, and I will,
God.
they are. And I will say, whenever he invited me to like go out and get drinks or something, I would always go. But like,
so
I don't
maybe
know.
you should start a community that's called the non-needy people's community. That's like a loose knit community.
I know, right?
Let
That's-
it be.
The NNPC,
If only I was
non-needy
proactive.
people's community.
That would be nice. But yeah.
What's your type
Yeah.
again, Jacob?
NEFI, consume, play, sleep, last, MF, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about and you want to, go check out Objective Personality and you can find out exactly what we're talking about.
What was
But-
that O for?
Did I
There
do
seemed to
that?
be some sort of realization
Oh.
or some sort of judgment attached
You
to
have
it.
you have the same animal stack as me, so I feel your vibes. Honestly, like
That's funny.
I had to force myself not to be the flake friend. To be honest, like I was in college, I was like in the dorm, like in every setting in my life, people would be like, "Man, like come hang out, come hang out, come hang out," and be like, "Yeah, I'm not coming to hang out." And they, like eventually they would give up, but it just took a long time. And now I put this in my social type 1 video that I did with Kendrick, but for like the last 3 years, every time I meet someone new and I can tell they like me a lot and they want to like be my friend, I actually tell them, "Yo, I'm gonna be forward with you. Like I'm not gonna be a good friend." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like I'm not, like if you try to call me, I'm not gonna answer. I'm just telling you, like I don't have any reason to talk to you on the phone unless you're dying. If you text
And
me,
even then, can you text?
Oh,
Oh,
Jacob's
Oh,
done.
you
he
really
dropped out.
offended him.
I freaking triggered
Yeah.
him. He was like, "Wait, this is
Oh,
too much like
snap.
me. I'm leaving."
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with this
I was
group.
like, I can't do this.
I can't do this anymore.
I think he just wants us to be chill about it.
It's okay. We're chill, bro. Don't worry. It's so chill. We don't even care if you're here. Like we can feel your spiritual
There
presence.
you go.
Stephanie, what do you think is social? Did we trigger you, bro?
No,
You stormed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You flaked on us right there.
can you guys hear me or no?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
we
now.
can. We can
Okay.
hear
You
now.
froze for a
Yeah, no,
second.
technology hates me. The sensory just, my laptop decided,
Oh,
hey,
take
I
it.
can't connect to Wi-Fi right now, and drops the call, you know?
Oh.
Yeah, that always happens at the very critical moment of a meeting, your Wi-Fi
I know, right?
drops.
Man.
Like when you're
Oh.
getting roasted for being a flake, you just drop off the meeting.
You
Yeah,
know, we
what a
can go
coincidence.
with the rage quit narrative. I'm cool with that.
That's awesome. We're chill about it. It's so chill.
Yeah.
We're
I do think
I'm
he's
just,
a social too. Social
Oh, you do?
anxiety, social too. Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Interesting.
social too.
I'm not as much into the Enneagram. All I know is I'm like a 7 and probably, I don't know, that's a head type. So I don't know what my gut and my heart are.
Oh, not
so.
like that. That's Enneagram. This is
Well, you said social too.
that's objective
Oh,
personality did their
okay.
social types 1 through
Whoa,
4.
you haven't got him on social types yet, Stephanie?
No, I haven't
Oh,
really looked into it
yeah.
too much myself yet, even though it's been very exciting.
Oh my.
No, she betrayed you guys. She went over to Enneagram
Oh,
and
boy.
stopped OPS.
More like
I still
loser-ogram. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, OP is still awesome. So, and I did do an interview recently, so that counts. I'm involved.
Oh, fair enough. Sorry, I think I caused this to go into OP world, which is really fun to talk about. But
That's okay. Maybe we'll get some people to come over and join us there. If this community right here on this stream is not sufficient for you, come join us in our personality cult.
Mhm.
yes. It's a great
Okay,
religion.
so sort of back to the topic at hand. Rose says openness, safety, acceptance, growth, fun as core values of the optimal group setup. I think those are all really good things. They're very difficult to find though in a group setting. And that's why I sort of am inclined to try to create it myself. But it is very, and it's even if you're the one trying to like set the vibe and set the group sort of culture, it can be very difficult to find people that align there. Which brings me to the next question I was going to ask you guys is like, What do you think is the basis for a good community? Like Stephanie, you were saying you're involved in some sports and some other like clubs and things. Then of course we have what we've been talking about, which is like a shared belief system, like religion or something. Do you guys think that you need like some shared overlapping values even, or is just overlapping interests enough? What do you think?
I think some people need overlapping values. I don't necessarily think I do, as long as people aren't impressing it on me, or if that value isn't specifically related to how you treat another person. And if that was different, then that would be a problem. But if it's just like an opinion about something that had nothing to do with our relationship, then I don't see why that's a problem. But for some people, it is.
Yeah.
I also think that, not to bring it back, but I think a lot of it has to do with like your type, like on which one you value, which thing you value. Stephanie as a decider definitely cares more about like intimate relationships, whereas like I would want more like loose, less intimate, like just like fun things to do, like more shallow friends.
Like people to hang with rather than
Yeah.
to like share your deep dark secrets.
Right. I would prefer like probably 5 or 6 shallow friends and no intimate friends. Like, I mean, I'm married. I don't need that.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie wants like 1 or 2 like really intimate friends and doesn't really care about shallow friends at all.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I think that could also be just like a difference between men and women, just as a generalization. Not across the board, but I do see that as like a sort of pattern.
Maybe. I think if it was, it would be like a conditioned thing, not necessarily a like innate thing.
Yeah, possibly.
I forgot the question. Was there a question?
Do you think to form a cohesive group, do you think that you need shared values, or can it be shared interests, or do you even need anything shared? Like, can it just be like a bunch of hot people like hanging out? Like, what is the basis for a
Hot
good
people.
group?
If you're all
Yeah.
hot, that's shared.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest, I think the more that's shared, probably the more intimate and the more easy it is to be intimate and vulnerable, most likely. I think you can become intimate and vulnerable without having everything shared, but just like in marriage, like if you're dramatically different people, like in every way, like you're probably gonna have to work a little bit harder to grow in intimacy and trust. Like if you think about if you put like the most liberal and the most conservative people in a room together that are like radicalized, even though I think most people aren't, like to get them to be best friends, they're eventually going to talk about politics and it's going to get weird. And then they're either going to humble themselves and like be gentle about it and actually have a conversation, or they're going to go in the opposite direction. And I think what I've noticed is most people, they struggle to have a real conversation. And because of that, I think that if you want to have real vulnerability and intimacy, you're setting yourself up for success by default going into it with similar values and interests. I don't think that's how it should have to be. I just think because humans are friggin' goofy and have insecurities, like that makes it easier.
Yeah, the people tend to be tribalistic,
Yeah.
for better or worse. But
Definitely.
I was just sorry not to cut you off. You
don't care about me?
Not deeply. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was just Googling this book that I had read. Have any of you guys ever read M. Scott Peck? He was a psychologist. I think he's dead now. But he wrote some different books about psychology, and one of them was about community building. It's called The Different Drum. I listened to it a few years ago, so I'll do my best to convey the concept of it. But basically, he was talking about he did these like workshops or seminars over many years and replicated it multiple over time. And he was saying that it's possible to create real and deep community among a group of strangers of disparate backgrounds and beliefs if you follow this certain formula. And he calls it the 4 stages of building community. And basically what he would do is like get them all in a group in like this seminar and then like haze them into becoming friends. But pretty much it looked like he was describing like you have these stages where at first like pseudo community where it's very shallow and everybody's like nicey with each other and you're like, okay, you're cool, like we can, even if we have differences, we can for the purpose of this sort of try to smooth over those and kind of get along. Then once you start forcing people to like show some vulnerability, it becomes chaos where everybody's like, oh, I didn't realize this about you. Like, oh, then your tribal instincts kick in and you're like, oh no, this person is that person's this, I'm that. And it creates chaos. And then it wears everybody out to the point that there's emptiness where they're like, how can we ever connect with each other? Because we're all so different. And then out of that comes true community where you realize like, despite all of that, you can still connect with people. And he had this whole series, he describes the whole thing in the book. He had this whole series of like exercises that he had people do that would like force them through those stages. And he said at the end of it, every single time, he would end up creating like these genuine, real connections with people. And so I do think it is possible to create like this type of formula to do it, regardless of like shared values or even shared interests. The only thing you have to have is like a willingness to jump into the process. But yeah, it's tough to, when we have people like Jacob out here just flaking on us. No, I'm kidding.
I know, right?
No.
The worst.
I will just say, I'll argue that like if people came to seminars, they were probably the type of people that would probably do the best at something like that.
Yeah, although I do think he did them with like in corporate settings too, where people are just like, you have to go to the seminar. You know,
I think
All right. You're getting fired if you don't be
listen,
friends with
see,
people.
you better get in the seminar, see, you know. Like,
well, I mean, I think humans, like, even across cultures, have like an immense amount in common that we don't realize. Even if we have like super like major differences, like just go into politics, pick an issue, and it's like both people agree with things, like the gun issue. Both people want to protect the most people, right? Yep. It's like we all share that value, like, and then the difference comes when you come to the like the prescription of it or like the second order of like abstraction for it. So it's like I think humans can always relate. It's just at like what level are they meeting?
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. And I can remember maybe I was talking to Rose about this or my brother because we're always talking about like community ideas. Speaking of which, the show Community, if you haven't watched it, you should. But I have this idea of like one other thing that you realize like brings people together is like shared trauma, you know? Like if you watch any of these shows, these drama TV shows of like, oh no, this group got stranded on an island and they had to like come together or whatever. So I was like, what if we created a community initiative where you just like force people through some trauma together and then like they come out on the other end like
then we get Lord of the Flies.
Trauma bonding. Yeah, exactly.
We get Lord of the Flies. I don't know how that works.
Totally.
Yeah. I think people do figure it out. I mean, have you guys seen Weird? Is it called Weird the Titans?
That football.
Is that the football movie
with Sean Astin?
Yeah. It's a really good movie, honestly.
Remember the Titans, I think.
Remember the Titans. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I mean, it was during the time there was still segregation going on, a lot of crappy stuff, and they built, because in football they freaking tore them apart and made them do basically military practice 2-a-days. Like everyone became best friends. And I'm intrigued by that because I feel like the same thing kind of happens if you join the military, for example. It's a bunch of different losers coming together, having a really hard life, and then they're probably all best friends. And most of the people I know that went to the military, they'll say it's like, yeah, it's horrible, but I'll say that I built like the best brotherhood and sisterhood that I ever had while I was there because we all hated everything except for each other or something. Like there was like a common enemy or goal that they had to strive for, and it built intimacy, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of sad that people have to have a hardship together and face trauma together, but
well, we can't figure out what goal, right? We can't come to an agreement on what the goal should be.
Yeah, you're right.
Problems. So
yeah, I think that is one problem. And then another problem is like I do think a large chunk of it is proximity too. If you're just stuck in a room with like Big Brother or whatever, like I don't know that those people come out being best of friends, but if you're just forced into proximity with people, you tend to build relationships, and I think that's another thing that the internet has done is like you don't have to be in close proximity to people at all if you don't want to.
Yeah, and then you can kind of pick who you're in proximity to, so you're, I guess, you become a bit more sensitive to people that aren't closer to you because you're not like, I guess, catering as much.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, with that said, that's the end of this community. So get lost. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's a good place to wrap for today. Like I said at the beginning, I really genuinely have appreciated you guys being willing to show up and do this. And I do want to continue it, whether that's next week or next month or in a few weeks or whatever. I'll let you guys know, and I'll see what everyone wants to do. But if you're listening back after the fact, just give us a shout and let us know what you think. And I appreciate everybody and hope you guys have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.